Let's jump right into one of the most intense, honestly terrifying crossovers in sports history. We're talking about the absolute pressure cooker Benito Mussolini put the Italian national football team into during the 1934 and 1938 World Cups. If you ever thought you had a demanding boss, well, you haven't seen anything yet. Welcome to The Explainer. Let's unpack exactly what went down.
Right, so put yourself in the player's boots for a second. Rumors were swirling before the 1934 tournament and again before the 1938 final that Mussolini sent a very specific telegram to the legendary Italian coach Vittorio Pozzo and his squad. The message was short, it was sweet, and it was utterly terrifying. Vince o morire. Win or die. Imagine you're the star striker. Suddenly missing a penalty doesn't just mean getting booed. In your head, it means a one-way ticket to a labor camp or worse, a firing squad. That is a life-or-death stakes environment right out of the gate.
Section 1. Football as political weapon.
So, to really get why that telegram existed, we have to look at the timeline. Mussolini had been ruling Italy for over a decade by 1934. He looks right across the border and sees Hitler gearing up to use the 1936 Berlin Olympics as this massive global propaganda machine. Mussolini basically says, yeah, I want in on that. Since Italy was hosting the 1934 World Cup, losing simply was not an option for Il Duce. He needed a massive propaganda win to directly counter Hitler and prove his regime's superiority to the world. And to get that win, he allegedly turned to extreme psychological warfare.
Section 2. The win or die myth.
Out on the pitch, this unimaginable pressure actually seemed to work. Playing completely under the shadow of that win or die ultimatum, the Italian team pushed themselves to their absolute physical limits. They clawed out a grueling extra-time victory to claim the 1934 title, beating Czechoslovakia 2-1. They survived the pressure cooker and delivered exactly what the regime demanded, right on their home turf.
But then, we fast-forward to 1938, and the environment gets even more hostile. The World Cup is in France this time. The Italian team steps onto the field entirely in black shirts, which was the recognized symbol of the fascist paramilitary, and they throw up the fascist salute. The French crowd is completely furious, just relentlessly booing the team. So now the Italian players are essentially playing the role of the ultimate villains on the world stage, all while that exact same lethal win-or-die ultimatum is still hanging right over their heads.
Section 3. The goalkeeper's ultimate sacrifice. Against all those odds and overwhelming global animosity, Italy fought their way to the 1938 final and beat Hungary 4-2. But the most fascinating takeaway from this match actually comes from the losing side. After the game, the Hungarian goalkeeper Antal Szabo wasn't devastated. Instead, he allegedly delivered one of the most incredible lines in sports history. He said, "I may have let in 4 goals, but at least I saved 11 lives." He genuinely believed that by losing the game, he was sparing the Italian team from a firing squad. It just goes to show how widely accepted Mussolini's terrifying threat was, even by the opposing teams.
But here is the multi-million-dollar historical question we have to ask. Was this an actual, literal execution order? Did Mussolini seriously plan to line his players up against the wall if they lost a football match?
Which brings us to Section 4. Reality, metaphor versus execution.
Let's actually compare the myth with historical reality here. The myth, of course, is the firing squad waiting in the wings, but the historical reality is quite a bit different. Modern historians pretty much agree Mussolini didn't mean it literally. You see, vincere o morire was actually a very common, albeit incredibly aggressive, fascist slogan at the time. Think of it like the 1930s dictator equivalent of a coach screaming, "Leave it all on the field, it's do or die." Plus, Mussolini was a highly calculating propagandist. Executing his own beloved national heroes on the world stage just for losing a sporting event, that would have been a massive PR disaster, even for someone as ruthless as him. In reality, it was a metaphor designed for maximum leverage.
Section 5. The true psychological toll.
Because here's the thing, just because we, sitting safely in the present day, know it was a metaphor, doesn't mean the players knew that back then. You really have to empathize with the guys on the pitch. When a dictator who routinely locks up and eliminates dissidents tells you to win or die, you don't politely raise your hand and ask for clarification on his literary devices, right? The fear was 100% real, because the threat came from a regime known worldwide for brutal oppression. Failure literally felt fatal.
Take a player like Luis Monti. Now, Monti had already played under immense pressure for Argentina back in the 1930 tournament, before he switched to play for Italy. And he openly admitted that the atmosphere surrounding the Italian team was just filled with genuine terror. In their minds, they weren't playing for a trophy, they were playing for their survival.
Mussolini used that psychological leverage to completely back them into a corner. And honestly, that leads to the ultimate tragic irony of this whole explainer. That 1930s Italian team, they were genuinely incredible. They had absolute geniuses on the pitch. Brilliant tacticians like Giuseppe Meazza, the exact same guy the famous stadium in Milan is named after today. Based purely on their talent, they probably would have won those World Cups anyway. But instead of being remembered purely for their athletic dominance and tactical brilliance, their legacy is forever overshadowed by a dictator holding a metaphorical gun to their heads.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. How does history change when we realize the monsters were using metaphors, but the fear was completely real? It's a chilling reminder of what happens when the beautiful game gets hijacked by regime politics. So, next time you're stressed about a high-pressure deadline, just remember, at least your boss didn't sign off their email with Vincere o Morire. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep digging into the history, and I'll catch you next time.